Support for the Legislative Gazette comes from United University Professions, representing 37,000 academic and professional employees at SUNY campuses and teaching hospitals across New York State. Frederick E. Cole, President. UUPinfo.org.
As tensions continue over the presence of federal immigration and customs enforcement agents in communities across the country, New York Governor Kathy Hochul took her strongest stance yet. The Legislative Gazette's Samantha Simmons reports.
New York Governor Kathy Hochul wants ICE out of New York. The Democrat said she is proposing a new law that would ban agreements between local police departments and federal immigration agents.
Cutting off access to our jails to ICE agents will make it harder for them to operate these large-scale operations, which they're building up to try and do right now in the state of New York. We've seen the warning signs. It's happening. That's what they did in Minneapolis. Get large-scale detention centers, use the local jails for these purposes, and that's what we want to head off.
In 2018, Rensselaer became the first county in New York to enter a so-called 287G agreement to allow deputies to enforce federal immigration laws within the county jail. Rensselaer County officials say they will continue the county's participation in the 287G program. County Executive Steve McLaughlin, a Republican, said of Hochul in a statement, quote, "By her actions, she is a supporter of open borders at any cost," unquote. County Sheriff Kyle Bergall says his department's agreement with ICE only allows people who have been arrested and booked to be screened by agents. Bergall, a Republican, says the governor's statements Friday are generalized and don't take into consideration Rensselaer County's jail-focused approach. He added Rensselaer County Sheriff's Department, quote, "isn't ripping people out of cars or off of the streets," unquote. State Senator Jake Ashby, a Republican, whose district encompasses Rensselaer County, says what we've seen across the country and even locally is not always positive or supportive.
I support ICE in New York searching out criminals, right? So people that are here who are undocumented, who have an element of criminality surrounding them, who have committed crimes. There's a difference between the administrative warrants that are going on and the criminal warrants that are going on, and where they're being detained, right? We need to re-examine that. And I think we can do that in a thoughtful manner in New York State. But yes, I do support ICE protecting the public from criminal elements. That being said, you know, what we're seeing in Minneapolis, and frankly, what we've seen sometimes here in our own community, is not that. And we need to make a positive change for that. I don't think that's going to occur by grandstanding and screaming at each other. I think it's going to come through thoughtful policy reflection and productive discussions.
Meantime, Hochul says she wants local police to continue to help federal agents track down, quote, violent criminals, unquote.
We'll always cooperate with federal government to bring violent criminals to justice. Full stop. That's not a change in policy. However, it does not mean that New York State will stand for flagrant abuse of power under the guise of public safety.
The proposed legislation would require a judicial order to arrest people accused of crimes facing threats from ICE and ban the use of local departments' technologies to assist ICE investigations. After proposing legislation in her State of the State earlier this month, designating houses of worship, schools, and hospitals as sensitive locations where ICE cannot enter without a judicial warrant, Hochul is also planning to include private homes on the list. As Hochul and state leaders consider measures that could lead to changes in New York law, some leaders are taking matters into their own hands. Rockland County legislator Beth J. Davidson, who is also running to replace Republican Mike Lawler in New York's 17th congressional district, says she is planning to put forward the Safety and Dignity for All Act, which would block county officials from collaborating with ICE.
So under this law, county employees will absolutely still be required to comply with judicial warrants, and follow the law. It's, not about letting dangerous or violent criminals off scot-free, but about protecting everyone else from ICE, which has become a completely rogue and out-of-control agency.
The bill is based on a 2018 Westchester County law called the Immigration Protection Act, which bans county employees from using its resources to assist federal investigations based on race, gender, religion, or ethnicity, except in criminal matters or when ICE has a judicial warrant. Representative Lawler, whose district includes Rockland, told the New York Post, quote, Beth Davidson is willing to sacrifice the safety of Rockland County residents for the support of far-left radical Democrats, unquote. For the Legislative Gazette, I'm Samantha Simmons.
Governor Kathy Hochul has proposed several initiatives aimed at assisting the state's farmers, including another round of funding to help modernize dairy farms and millions of dollars in tariff relief. Samuel King with the New York Public News Network reports farmers welcome the relief, but some lawmakers have questions about how it will be distributed.
The past meets the present at A. Ooms & Sons Dairy Farm in Columbia County, just an hour from the state capital in Albany. Eric Ooms says when he was younger, he had to milk cows by hand, but no more. He shows me a large robotic milker that works while a cow has a snack.
And now the grain bucket's going to move out of the way, and that's her cue to leave.
As we go to a large barn where cows are kept, more tech. What's this machine coming at us now?
That's another robot. It's just pushing the feed in, because as you can see, it went down this side. And it pushes the feed closer. It goes once an hour on the hour.
Says technology like these robots helps keep the family business going.
I work here with my two brothers, are partners in this business. And my father, still at 93, still does some of the book work, and he's still engaged. And what it has allowed for us is to have flexibility. We don't need as much labor because we have technology to help with that, that's what society's doing, and that's a good thing.
Under Governor Kathy Hochul's budget proposal, other farms would get the chance to upgrade their technology as well. She's proposing another $15 million for a dairy farm modernization program. She also wants to extend tax credits for another 5 years to offset some costs for farmers to make investments on their farms. It's something says has been vital to help take advantage of the industry's growth in recent years across New York State.
For our family, it's been a very pleasant surprise, and it definitely encourages farmers to invest and stay in New York and produce in New York. There's no question about that.
Is also interested in another part of the governor's package, $30 million in tariff relief. Hochul says she's heard from farmers across the state about the impact tariffs have had on their bottom line.
Their costs have gone up and their marketplace shrank.
Agriculture Commissioner Richard Ball, himself a farmer, had few specifics for lawmakers at the recent budget hearing.
The size of these payments could depend on the weight, 100 weights on dairy farms, sales crops. The idea of larger operations may have suffered more than others. But I think the point is we're dealing, kind of with a real-time chaotic federal government that's already proven to be uncertain in this regard.
Says the impact of tariffs on his family's farm remains hard to quantify.
I mean, it's all part of the stew, right? It's not just one thing or another. Tariffs, I as a dairy farmer, I can't quantify the tariff impacts. I will say we're more exposed than ever because we export about 17% of our domestic dairy product, whereas when I was 20, we were exporting 5 or 6%. So we're exporting so much more in the world market, markets like certainty.
Republicans, like Senate Minority Leader Rob Ort, are skeptical. He says Hochul is trying to have it both ways.
The tariffs can't be destroying the economy. At the same time, she has billions of more revenue than she was counting on because of Trump's economy. It's politics.
Hochul fired back at a Tuesday news conference.
If you want to be doing the political calculation, clearly these are not areas that tend to vote Democrat where there's farms. So let's just put that out there. My only interest is knowing that they have been hit hard by the Trump tariffs.
Back on the Ooms farm, the clamor of political debate is replaced by the hum of machines and contented cows.
And it's as exciting a time to be a dairy farmer, even though it's colder than the surface of Mars today. I think it's a great time to be invested in the dairy industry.
Lawmakers like Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins say they are supportive of relief, but it remains unclear how much of the governor's proposal makes it through the budget process. In Albany, I'm Samuel King for the New York Public News Network.
You are listening to the Legislative Gazette, a program about New York State government and politics. I'm David Gastina. Welcome back to the Legislative Gazette. I'm David Gastina, and here with me now, and I'm so excited about it, it's an old colleague and friend, Susan Arbetter. Now, you know Susan Arbetter if you've ever listened to public broadcasting. She was at WAMC for a long time, but also much more known now for her work in television, the host of Capital Tonight on Spectrum Networks. And, of course, she's a veteran political journalist with a long list of accolades, a mentor to me, yours truly, and she is a star, including being inducted into the Women's Press Club and New York Hall of Fame. Susan Arbetter, welcome to the Legislative Gazette.
David, that's very, very nice of you. Thank you so much. I have to say that you have been a mentor to me as well.
Well, the two of us have worked and could finish each other's sentences at one point. But we're students of the legislature. You know, we've spent a lot of time now covering the legislature and looking at the inner workings. And, you know, that benefits our listeners, especially we can have someone like you to break down this special election. This is in the 61st Senate District, and there is a winner. That district is Genesee County, parts of Erie and Monroe counties. It's been vacant. Now, this is since Sean Ryan resigned to serve as Buffalo's mayor. So set it up for us. We have a winner.
We do. We have a winner, and that winner is Jeremy Zellner. Now, interestingly, even before Sean Ryan resigned his seat back in November when he won the mayoralty of the city of Buffalo, the Erie County Democratic Party chairman and Democratic County Elections Commissioner Jeremy Zellner announced his intention to run for Sean Ryan's seat. That irked a lot of people who thought that he was basically electing himself to the position. He faced off against a moderate Republican, Dan Gagliardo. Gagliardo is actually a former registered Democrat, David, which is interesting.
Yeah.
He says that he's someone who doesn't see party, he just sees people who he needs to provide service to. Gagliardo is a businessman who owns a chain of restaurants. Anyway, Zellner won the special election yesterday by about 20 percentage points in a district that has a pretty substantial Democratic enrollment advantage. And this isn't the only special election that was taking place yesterday. There were actually 4 special elections. This is the only one in upstate. But there was 3 in New York City because there were 3 seats vacated by lawmakers who have new jobs, like, for example, Zoran Mamdani now has a new day as mayor.
So he's out of the assembly seat.
He's out of the assembly. Diana Moreno won that special election. Harvey Epstein was also an assemblyman. He won a seat in the New York City Council. Keith Powers won his seat. And Senator Brad Hoylman Siegel, who famously used to say that his Senate district in Manhattan ran from gay bars to Zay bars, is now the Manhattan Borough president, and Eric Botcher won his seat.
So with all of this news in, what impact does it have really on the majority? Nothing.
It has no impact on the majority. The state Senate does not have a supermajority, but they do have a majority, and they will continue to have a majority. I think what's really interesting about this race, though, David, is the 61st state Senate district seat is 2 things. First, that Zellner, this is Jeremy Zellner, not Zellner Myrie, who is a completely different person.
Correct.
Jeremy Zellner has said he intends to run for re-election as chair of the Erie County Democratic Committee again in September, and he's not giving up that role. So again, the whole idea of Zellner running for Senate while also serving in that role as chairman doesn't sit well with a lot of people, including Assemblyman John Rivera, who intends to run against Zellner for the 61st State Senate District seat in the June primary. That's this June. So the seat that Zellner just won only lasts until the end of December 2026. Then in June, there's a primary for the next legislative term, and John Rivera wants to run against Zellner, primary him for the seat. Rivera says that he thinks that the whole thing looks bad with Zellner running for state Senate and winning a seat while also serving as the Democratic chairman of Erie County. And Rivera also doesn't think that Zellner can do this fairly. And there are other people who also think that this is a pretty lousy idea, including India Walton, who is making news today.
She sure is. Explain.
India Walton, absolutely. She's a nurse. She's a community organizer. You might remember, David, that she swamped Byron Brown in a Democratic primary back in Buffalo in 2021. So yesterday, the Investigative Post first reported that India is being tapped to be Antonio Delgado's running mate in his attempt to challenge Governor Hochul.
And she's a Democratic socialist.
She is. She's a Democratic socialist. So clearly Delgado is running to Hochul's left. And India Walton is going to help him do that. Adrian Adams is Governor Hochul's pick for lieutenant.
Tell everybody who that is.
So Adrian Adams was the former city council president. Famously, two Adamses were running the city of New York, one city council, one in mayoralty. So one of the first all-women major party tickets ever in New York, certainly the first two women ever to run for governor and lieutenant governor. But
the fact is right now, and I know it's very, very early still, the polls show Hochul with a wide lead.
Yeah. So the Siena poll came out, as you know, and Governor Hochul's favorability rating was the highest it has ever been, 49%, which is pretty good for her. I mean, everything's relative, right? So her job approval rating is also pretty high at 54%. More than that, though, David, 6 of her biggest state of the state proposals were seeing bipartisan support, which is not really typical. We saw bipartisan support for her cell phone ban last year. There are two, if you don't mind, I'd like to highlight two different proposals. The first is ensuring that immigration enforcement targeting people whose only crime is being in this country illegally cannot occur in sensitive locations like schools, hospitals, and places of worship unless ICE has a judicial warrant.
Right.
This proposal received 67%, 76% from Democrats, 58% from Republicans. That's pretty good. Another proposal that got bipartisan support is eliminating taxes on the first $25,000 earned in tips. It got 68% approval rating. 70% of Dems liked it. 66% of Republicans also supported it. Not surprising, since this particular proposal made its debut on the federal level in the president's big, beautiful bill.
Yeah, let's just talk for a moment, Susan, if we could, because, when you look at Western New York and you look at Long Island, they're largely Republican. And a Democrat, of course, won here, but in the special election in Western New York. But I've also seen some articles, I believe it was at Syracuse.com, I read something about how the upstate Republicans, or at least some former Republicans, are concerned that the president's policies, and you mentioned bipartisan agreement on immigration issues with the governor, may be hurting them in some of these upstate races.
It's very interesting. This is just sort of coming about right now, but an assemblyman who is a Republican from the Hudson Valley, Jake Ashby, just proposed some legislation that would limit ICE in certain circumstances. This is not something that we have seen Republicans do, even here in purple New York. Now, we know that Bruce Blakeman, the Nassau County executive, is, 100% backing Trump and his proposals on ICE. But other Republicans, even upstate Republicans who are not sort of, who sometimes are the more MAGA Republicans, are getting a little bit of cold feet because of ICE. And they are seeing the writing on the wall that, if you can't shoot American citizens in the face and people are not going to notice, it's something that is so out of the norm and so outrageous that even upstate Republicans are starting to back off that position.
Well, I can't tell you how great it is
so fun
to have Susan Arbetter with us. She is, of course, host of Capital Tonight on Spectrum Networks. Susan, it's been so great to talk with you.
Thanks so much, David.
You are listening to the Legislative Gazette, a program about New York State government and politics. I'm David Gustina. The Coalition for Asian American Children and Families wants more mental health support for AAPI youth. The Legislative Gazette's Sagina Shrestha spoke with its co-executive director, Aditya Gundana, about the importance and the barriers to mental health care for AAPI youth in New York.
So what we do know is that our youth really do want spaces in community to allow them to talk about their feelings, spaces that can help them have conversations that around their mental health and mental health challenges. They want to be acknowledged around their identity and actually work in community with young people facing similar situations. They want to be supported in their schools with appropriate counseling. I think the problem is that a lot of our community is shrouded by this myth of the model minority that we don't struggle. And young people are also affected by that negatively in that they're not acknowledged, they don't feel safe in sharing and or that they have space to share their challenges. And so a lot of it is that young people in our AAPI communities are isolated in their struggle.
I definitely see that. When I was a teenager as an Asian American, I often felt like I could not ask for help, even with the teachers, if I was struggling with something, because of this myth that I'm an Asian American student. I don't struggle. I get the work done. So it's interesting that even after all these years, I went to high school in 2015. But now it's 2026, almost 11 years later. It's interesting to note that even now, Asian American youth and Asian American Pacific Islander youth feel isolated and like they cannot reach out. So what's at stake here?
Well, I mean, the statistics show that there are lives at stake. Our young people really need to be heard and understood. There needs to be better data on our youth. There needs to be disaggregated data on Asian American Pacific Islander young people to understand, how to target and tailor responses that would be supportive of our communities. But the truth is that if there is mental health concerns and those are not addressed, then unfortunately we do see things like suicide or further mental, deterioration or mental health deterioration that could have been addressed earlier and prevented through supportive measures and acknowledgement and real policy and supportive services that tackle problems at the places where young people are, which are at schools or in community organizations or within their community. And so that's really what we're seeing.
Speaking of targeting and creating systems that work, what have you seen that does work and what have you seen that doesn't but can be improved on?
Yeah, so what we see works is really services that stem from within communities and within trusted community-based organizations that are providing culturally responsive, language accessible, really targeted and trusted supports to communities. So we've seen that work across New York State, where there are local community organizations that provide encouraging mental health focused spaces for AAPI young people, that they're ensuring that families are integrated and not isolated, that they're getting the mental health supports that they need holistically. They understand the stories and the circumstances of the communities within which they serve and live and work. So really what works is finding and supporting community organizations on the ground and equipping them to work with young people, equipping them to be able to support their young people.
That was the Legislative Gazette's Sajina Shrestha in conversation with Anita Gundona, co-executive director of the Coalition for Asian American Children and Families. And that about does it for this week's show. The Legislative Gazette is a production of WAMC Northeast Public Radio. We had help from the New York Public News Network. You can listen anytime at WAMCpodcast.org or anywhere you get your podcasts. Look for program number 2606. And join us again next week at this same time. For more news on New York State government and politics, for the Legislative Gazette, I'm David Gustina.
Support for the Legislative Gazette comes from United University Professions, representing 37,000 academic and professional employees at SUNY campuses and teaching hospitals across New York State. Frederick E. Cole, President. UUPinfo.org.